Shalom everyone, and thank you very much for joining me again, learning and exploring Parashat Vayetze. Today, we would like to learn with you and to study with you a little bit about the concept of universal ethics that we can find in our Parsha. In this Parsha, Parashat Vayetze, as we know from last week's Parsha, ויגדלו הנערים, ויהי עשיו איש יודע ציד איש שדה, ויעקב איש תם יושב אוהלים. This is the description that the Torah delineates to us in last week's Parsha, in last week's Torah portion, that the youth, Yaakov and Esau, despite the fact that they were twins, they were very different. Esau was a hunter, a man of the outside world, and Yaakov was a simple person, ish tam, a simple person, basically dwell in tents. However, the Torah says, ויאמר יעקב אל רבקה אמו, אין עשיו אחי איש שעיר, ואנוכי איש חלק, אולי ימושני אבי, והייתי בעיניו כמתעתע, והבאתי עלי קללה ולא ברכה, which means, this is also from last week's Torah portion, and I will explain why I brought these two sources. Yaakov says to Rivka, when she tries to push him to steal the blessings, or to take the blessings that she thought really Yaakov is the one to deserve them, he says to her, look, I'm concerned, I'm afraid, I'm terrified, because we are so different. Esau is so different than me, even in an external appearance. And I'm afraid that my father will touch me, and he will see that I basically faked being Esau, and he will curse me instead of giving me a blessing. Which means, we see something very interesting. We see that Yaakov was not only just afraid that he will be caught, and not only that maybe Yitzchak will curse him instead of giving him a blessing, but also we see that it went against Yaakov's nature to lie to his father. He tried to escape that. He tried to deviate from his mom's command, go ahead and take the blessings. Because I'm an ishtam, I'm a simple person, I'm a complete person, I'm a naive person. I'm not sure about the word naive, I think it's more of a simple person. I don't want to deceive anyone. I don't think it's ethical. But his mom is pushing him, and for that, Rivka, according to our sages, had some kind of a prophecy that Yaakov is the one to receive the blessings. However, for our purposes, for this class purposes, we see that Yaakov was not thrilled to get the blessings, even if he thought that he is the one to deserve them. He felt that it's not right. He felt that it might be unethical. However, in this Torah portion, Parashat Vayetze, we all know how last week's Torah portion ended with this anger and rage that Esau felt towards Yaakov, and he said, I'm just waiting for my father to die, and I will murder my brother. So Yaakov realized that, and Rivka realized that. She went to Yitzchak, and she told him, we need to send Yaakov away. He needs to find a wife, he needs to start a family, we need to send him to my family. And this is our Torah portion. וישא יעקב רגליו, וילך ארצה בני קדם. So Yaakov basically fled the land of Canaan, the land of Israel, and he went to Arza Bnei Kedem. He went to the land of Bnei Kedem, where really his mother's family is from. וירא, and he saw, והנה באר בשדה. There is a well in the field. והנה שם 3 עדרי צאן רובצים עליה, and there are 3 shepherds with their flock that are basically encamping around the well. כי מן הבאר ההיא ישקו העדרים, because all the shepherds will just basically gather there in order to what? To water their flock. והאבן גדולה על פי הבאר, but there is a major, strong, large rock on the well, and they are all waiting. ונאספו שם כל העדרים, וגללו את האבן מעל פי הבאר, וישקו את הצאן. So what are they waiting for? They are waiting for all the shepherds, I guess from all the neighborhoods, to come together, and together they remove the rock, and after they water the flock, they put the rock on the well again. והשיבו את האבן על פי הבאר למקומה, and they will remove the rock, and they will put it back. Which obviously, if we will just pause here, we definitely need to ask ourselves a very simple question. Why would you do that? why don't you leave the well open? Or why don't you just cover it with something that it's easily to be removed by one person? Why do you need to wait for everyone to come to remove the rock, and then everyone put the rock back and waiting for the same thing the next day? It makes no sense, unless there is a fear. Maybe there is a fear that someone is going to take too much water, or there is a fear that someone will do something to the water. It seems to be that on one hand there is a lot of togetherness. They wait for everyone to remove the rock and to put the rock back. However, it seems to be that there is a little bit of a lack of trust between the people. They all need to be there. It cannot be just left for one person or two. It needs to be all of them. So the Torah describes here a gathering of shepherds. We don't know anything about them besides the fact they all wait for everyone to come to remove the rock and to put it back. What does it have anything to do with Yaakov? So the Torah says the following. Vayomer lahem Yaakov. So Yaakov approached them and he says to them, Achai, my brothers, me'ayin atem, where are you from? Vayomru, mecharan anachnu. Oh, we are from Haran. Haran is exactly the place where his mother's family is from. Now this is a very interesting thing, and we will deal with that pasuk a little bit later on. But the way that Yaakov approached them is very odd. Yaakov does not know them. They don't know Yaakov. This is the first time he meet them. And to approach them with the word Achai, my brothers, you can ask them, excuse me, where are you from? But to approach them with the word Achai is very strange. And then he says to them, Vayomer lahem, הידעתם את לבן בן נחור? ויאמרו ידענו. Do you know my future father-in-law? Do you know my uncle Lavan? And they say, yes, we do. As you can see, by the way, they don't speak much. Their answers are very short. ויאמר להם, and he says to them, השלום לו? Is he well? Is he doing okay? ויאמרו, שלום, yeah, he's okay. והנה רחל ביתו באה עם הצאן. His daughter, Rachel, she's coming with a flock. Okay, so you would think that Yaakov will say, thank you very much, we'll see you later, I'm on my way to Haran. Or thank you for the information, I'm looking forward to see you again. Instead, Yaakov is staying there and he says to them, Vayomer, and he says to them, Enod hayom gadol, it's only early, it's a very early hour in the day. Lo et te'asef hamikneh, it's not about time for you to encamp here around the well, and waiting and doing nothing. Ashku atzon ulchuru, go ahead, water the flock and continue to shepherd the flock. Now, with all due respect, who are you? You just came to town. You asked us if we know Lavan, and now you are giving me a musar shmuz, you're giving me a rebuke. You start being the ethical voice telling me that I'm wasting my employer's time. That makes no sense. How come that Yaakov dares to give a rebuke to people he has no clue who they are, and he has no clue what's flying in that area, in that place, and he tells them, this is not right. You shouldn't just, be here unemployed or on a little vacation. You need to water the flock and continue to shepherd the flock. Vayomru, and interesting, they respond to him. לא נוכל, we can't. עד אשר יאספו כל העדרים וגללו את האבן מעל פי הבאר והשכינו הצאן. It doesn't work here like that. We are not here just doing nothing. This is the rule that we have here. We are waiting for everyone to come in order to remove the rock and put the rock back. So with all due respect, Yaakov, please don't give us rebuke. Okay. עודנו מדבר עמם, so he continues to talk to them, even though that the Torah does not delineate exactly what is the conversation. My assumption and my theory is that he will try to convince them to change the rule, which means your rule is that you need to wait for everyone. I'm telling you, you are wasting your employer's time. It's not fair. It's unethical. You shouldn't do it. You should make a rock or put a rock that it's easily removed, and everyone who needs to water the flock can do it and go on with his work. You are wasting your employer's time. But the Torah does not say anything. עודנו מדבר עמם, he continues to talk to them. ורחל, באה עם הצאן אשר לאביה כרועי. So Rachel is coming with the flock, with her father's flock, and she approaches the well. ויהי כאשר ראה יעקב את רחל בת לבן אחי אמו, so when Yaakov sees רחל, ואת צאן לבן אחי אמו, and he sees the flock, ויגש יעקב, ויגל את האבן מעל פי הבאר, וישק את צאן לבן אחי אמו. So Yaakov by himself removes the rock and water Rachel's flock. So obviously, we see that one person can remove the rock. It's maybe an even gdola, it's a large stone. He didn't say it's a heavy stone, it says a large stone. And Yaakov himself was able to remove it. So yes, it might be that Yaakov was extraordinarily strong, maybe extraordinarily strong, maybe. But still, one person, I don't know how many shepherds they were waiting for in order to remove the rock, but still, it seems to be that that rock could be removed by one or two people, and still they were waiting for everyone to come. So what do we have here? Before we see the Ralbag, what we see here is that we see that Yaakov is not such a shy person. He is not such a person that does not like to talk. He goes to people, he calls them achai, my brothers, which was very odd. B, he gives them a musar shmuz, he gives them rebuke of wasting their employer's time, and then he shows that he can do it. One person can do it, and he water his uncle's flock. So we need to try to understand what's going on here, and what is exactly the message that Yaakov is trying to convey to the people. So the Ralbag said the following, התועלת הראשון, why do we need to have that story, is במidot, which means your attributes. והוא, שראוי לאדם שיהיו דבריו עם הבריות בנחת. It says the first thing that you learn from Yaakov, when he approached the people that he did not know, and he said to them, Achai, my brothers, this is a nice approach. Don't tell them, hey you, or yo. You tell them, Achai, my brothers. ובתכלית הפיוס, כי בזה ישלם השלום, ויהיה לאדם מהאנשים העזר שיצטרך לו מהם. Which means when you approach someone with a smile, with a nice hello, A, there is going to be reciprocity. He's going to respond, she is going to respond. That's A. B, this is just a nice way to carry yourself. You see someone, say shalom, say hello, how are you, can I help you, do you know someone, but approach someone properly. ולזה תמצא, and therefore you will find in the Torah, שכאשר שאל יעקב מהרועים מאין אתם, when Yaakov approached those shepherds and he asked them, where are you from, אמר להם זה בנחת ובפיוס וקראם אחיו לו. Because Yaakov wanted to ask them something, but you can't ask a stranger a question and to ask him to help you. He doesn't know you. But when you create a language which is nice and appeasing and more comfortable, you send a message that I would like to be your friend. I might need your help, but I'm not a threat. Don't forget, Yaakov was a total stranger. He probably didn't look like those shepherds. He came from somewhere else. Maybe his accent was not great. They realized he is a foreigner. But when he said the word Achai, my brothers, he immediately created a connection. And that connection helped him to ask them questions, and they, in reciprocity, they answered him. So the first thing we learn from this story is that how you carry yourself. How do you approach other people? Shalom, Achai, my brothers. How are you doing? You approach them in a proper way. But now, says the Natziv, in העמק דבר, לימד לשונו לדבר לשון אהבה ורעות. Yaakov taught himself to speak a language of love and friendship. קרא לרועים שלא הכירה מעולם. He named those shepherds that he had no clue who they are. Achai, my brothers. Now, I know there is a bit of cynicism here because his own brother, Esau, wants to kill him. And he calls foreigners brother, my brothers. You know, some people can say, sometimes it's easier to be nicer to people that you don't know rather than to be nice to your own brother. However, I would like to clarify and to crystallize one point. Yaakov always approached Esau as Achi. Even in next week's parsha, when Yaakov prepares himself to fight Esau, he says, Atzileni na miyad Achi miyad Esau. He always considered Esau as my brother. Esau had obviously some bad feelings towards Yaakov, but Yaakov always considered Esau as Achi, as my brother. So Yaakov basically took upon himself to approach every stranger with Leshon Ahava Vereut, with the language of love and friendship, and he approached them with the word, my brothers. Okay, so now we have a problem. Until now, it's wonderful. So he approached them and he says to them, you are my brothers, how are you doing? Everyone is in love, everyone has friendship, that's wonderful. But now, we got to a point that with all this brotherhood thing, Yaakov says to them, what are you doing? You are wasting your employer's time, and that's what Rashi says. And Od Hayom Gadol, it's too early in the day, לפי שראה אותם רובצים, when he saw that they are just in camp next to the well, כסבור, he thought שרוצים לאסוף המקנה הביתה ולא יראו עוד. He thought that they are waiting to just waste the time, and then they will take the flock and go home. אמר להם עוד היום גדול. He says to them, it's too early. כלומר, אם שכירים אתם, if you are employees and you are getting paid by the hour, לא שילמתם פעולת היום. There is still many hours that you can still work. You are wasting your employer's money and time. ואם הבהמות שלכם, and if you are not employees, but rather you are the owners of that flock, אף על פי כן לא תיאסף המקנה. Why do you waste your own time? You can still take the flock, and you can shepherd them, and you can take them and take care of them. So whatever you are, if you are the owners of the flock or you are employees, you are wasting time, you are wasting money, you are not productive. That's what Rashi says. Rabbi Ovadia Sforno from Italy, from 16th century, he says, in Od Hayom Gadol, it's too early in the day, listen to what the Sforno says. Hatzadik, someone who is pious and righteous, ימאס את העוול גם כן אל אחרים, כאומרו, תועבת צדיקים איש עוול. Someone who is really righteous, he cannot stand injustice, even if this injustice has nothing to do with him, does not influence his or her life, does not affect the way I live. But when I see injustice, when I see unethical behavior, I cannot stand still. I cannot stand idle. I must intervene. Yaakov, who is a true tzaddik, cannot face the reality of people who are wasting their time or their employer's time. That's avel, that's unethical, that's injustice. And therefore, Yaakov feels, even though he doesn't know those people, he must say something to them in order to stop injustice. And you can say, yeah, it's very easy to say it about someone else. You please don't waste your time, but I can waste my time. The Torah describes Yaakov's employment time with Lavan, with his father-in-law, in the following manner. That's a pasuk, that's a verse in Bereshit, chapter 31, verse 40, source number 8. הייתי ביום אכלני חורף וקרח בלילה, ותידד שנתי מעיניי. During the day, even if it was freezing cold, or at night, or if it was sunny, I will be out there with Lavan's flock, and I will keep an eye on them, and I will shepherd that flock. ותידד שנתי מעיניי. I didn't sleep. And you are talking about 22 years of working for Lavan. And even if you will say, take 7 years that he worked for himself, for 14 years, Yaakov worked Lavan in such a manner. If the sun is out, if the snow is falling, Yaakov is out there with the flock. He didn't sleep because of the flock, which means total dedication to his work. So he definitely can speak about stealing your employer's time. So he didn't only talk about it, he did it. And then he says, when he was contemplating to run away from Lavan, he says to Rachel veLeah, ve'atena yeda'aten. You know, Rachel, Leah, you know that what? כי בכל כוחי עבדתי את אביכן. I worked for your father with all my might. Which means Yaakov really meant that when I tell you, I don't waste time, my work is important, and if I made a commitment to my employer that I will work for him 8 hours, I'm going to work for him for 8 hours, not 1 minute less. בכל כוחי, with all my might, with all my dedication. Ralbag continues on. התועלת השלישי הוא במידות. There is another benefit, or there is another advantage of knowing that story, והוא שראוי לאדם שישתדל להישיר האנשים אל הטוב בכל הפנים שאפשר. He says every person, by the way, has a responsibility and obligation, perhaps a duty, to try to straighten, to try to help people to go on the right path. כי בזה מתיקון המדינה. Because it helps society. If the society raise the level of ethics and morality, and everyone knows that when you sit in the office, you don't waste the time. When you go to a coffee break, you don't come after 3 hours. When you are on the computer, you do work for the company or the factory that you work for and not for yourself. So then the entire society can raise itself up and be an ethical society. The tikkun hamedina, when there is no injustice or when there is no unethical behavior. שבזה תגדל האהבה בין אנשים בהראותם קצתם לקצת, כי הם משגיחים בענייניהם ומשתדלים שיהיו בתכלית התיקון והשלמות. The Ralbag says, it's maybe a little bit naive, but I do believe that there is so much truth to what he says. He says, it might be annoying at the beginning, like, who are you to tell me not to waste my time? But if I see that you don't waste your time, and then you tell me, I might be annoyed for the first minute or two, but then I will be inspired. And I will say, look, this person next to me is so productive. He or she does not waste their time. You know what? I will do the same. And then the third person and the fourth person. And that can be an incredible wave of commitment, dedication to ethical behavior of the entire society. ולזה תמצא, and it says, and therefore, that's what the Torah says. שאמר יעקב לרועים, that Yaakov told the shepherds, שישקו הצאן, that they should water the flock, וילכו לרעות, and they should continue to shepherd the flock, כי לא עת יאסף המקנה. Because this is not yet the time to gather the flock. The Ralbag is a little different than the Sforno. The Ralbag in the 14th century, he talks about not only that because Yaakov was a tzaddik, a righteous person, and he couldn't stand an unethical behavior or he couldn't stand injustice. Ralbag says every person, ראוי לאדם, every person, a Jew, a non-Jew, every person who is a decent person, he should encourage his or her friend to do what is right, what is ethical. This is how you create a society, an ethical society. When people feel that other people care about them, and by the way, if you think for a minute, we all know that if our day was productive, even though it might be busy, very committed to our work, and we didn't have time to do other things, but we were productive, and we know that we didn't deviate from what we were supposed to do, we have a good feeling of satisfaction, of nachat, of true understanding that we were productive, we were ethical, and we were committed. This is how you build an ethical society. So now, Shadal says the following, ויאמר אין עוד היום גדול, הקשה תלמידי אלישע חיים זמתו. So he, by the way, Shadal, as a side note, in his commentary on the Torah, he quotes his students' questions and answers, which obviously says a lot about him as a teacher. He respected his students. He felt that he can include them in his perush, in his commentary. And also, he was not ashamed to say sometimes, "V'talmidi limed oti," my student taught me. As we all know, "V'talmida yoter mikulam," that a teacher learned from his students more than anyone else, because the questions make things clearer in the teacher's mind. So the Shadal says, "Iksha talmidi Elisha Chaim zamatu," my student Elisha Chaim questioned me. He says, "Ech itachen שיחשוב יעקב שהייתה כוונת הרועים לאסוף המקנה הביתה. והלא אמרו לו, והנה רחל ביתו באה עם הצאן. אם כן יודעים היו כי לא תאסף המקנה. Which means, he asked a very good question. He says, I don't understand. If you remember the conversation between the shepherds and Yaakov, he asked them, do you know Lavan? And they said, yes. Here, Rachel is coming with the flock. Which means, it's early in the day and she's still coming with the flock. And Yaakov is telling the shepherds, what are you doing? Why are you wasting the time? It's not the time to gather the flock. But obviously it's not the time to gather the flock. We just told you that Rachel is coming with the flock, which means this is a time of gathering. It's not a time to go home. It's a time to gather here, to remove the rock, and then we will continue to do what we need to do. He says, ונראה לי, he says, I think, כי הוא חשב שהם כבר השלימו מלאכת היום. He thought that they are done. ושרחל נתעכבה והחרה לבוא, but just Rachel had some kind of a delay, and she was late to come, והם היו יושבים שם בטלים וממתינים רק לראות הנערה או לדבר עימה. And they were just waiting there in order to, so to speak, to look at the girl. Rachel was very pretty, and Yaakov thought that they finished, and they are just hanging out there, they are sitting there, and they want to look at Rachel. ויעקב שעיקר הליכתו לחרן היה לקחת לו אישה מבנות לבן, and because Yaakov's purpose was to find a wife, עבר עליו רוח קנאה, וביקש להרחיקה מעליה. And Yaakov was a little jealous, so he gave them such a rebuke like, go away from here. He wanted to remove them from Rachel, and then he could have a conversation with her. Now, this commentary, and I brought it purposely here, because it's very creative. I'm not sure that that's the simple understanding and the simple meaning of the narrative, but I think that we can read it in a little bit of criticism on Yaakov's behavior. Yaakov had two assumptions. The first assumption was that they are wasting their time. B, the second assumption is that they are doing it in order to what? To try to talk to Rachel, or maybe to annoy her, to bother her, whatever it was. Which we don't know that was right, that was true. Perhaps there is another lesson, another message, another hidden message in the narrative according to Shadal. When we talk about ethics, and when we talk about morality, it starts with you, with your assumptions. Yaakov's assumptions were baseless. He did not know. He assumed it. And I think that there is sometimes problems with assuming things about others and then making a decision that they are not ethical. Perhaps Yaakov, through this experience, would learn that he needs to be a little bit more careful with these assumptions. So until now we saw how Yaakov, if he was a tzaddik or just a simple person who had this fire in him to stop injustice and to stop unethical behavior. However, according to Shadal and according to this question of his student, it seems to be that there is a little bit of a different angle, which is maybe there is a hidden criticism on Yaakov and his assumptions, deciding that those shepherds are not good people, without really any basis for it. So that's Shadal. The Or HaChaim said something beautiful. He says, Vayomer en od hayom gadol. Ta'amo, the reason of why Yaakov told the shepherds, hey, it's just too early in the day, you shouldn't just encamp here and just park yourself here and do nothing. He became like their judge. How come? Why did he do it? הוא לצד צער בעלי חיים דבר תורה וחש על הצאן. This is an incredible thing. Incredible. This is 20th century, beginning of 20th century. He says Yaakov was almost like the first one to care about the suffering of animals. He says, you are hanging out here. Probably the shepherds found a shady place, a place with shade that they could sit and relax, and the flock is out there in the sun. So he looked at the flock and he says, that's not right. You are just leaving them here and you don't care about them, and basically it's צער בעלי חיים. והוא עוד רצה לדעת אם טעם עקבתה מלצד שאין זמן להשקות הצאן ולראות כי העיר רחוקה היא, והצאן ביתיות הנה, ודבר זה נוגע לו לדעת דרך בבו. ומתשובתם ידע כי לא לסיבת ריחוק העיר הם עושים. So he says, and he wanted to know if they are just delaying the activity of watering the flock because the city is far away, and the flock is basically domestic animals, and he wanted to know because he wanted to know how far he has to walk to the city. And then when he realized that the city is close by, he didn't understand. Why don't you water the flock? So here, this is a very interesting point. When we talk about unethical behavior, we speak about, what we said before, stealing your employer's time, money you are not dedicated to the hours that you committed to. The Or HaChaim says, unethical behavior that Yaakov really felt that he needs to give them rebuke was about what? Tsa'ar ba'alei chaim. The suffering of animals. Yaakov couldn't stand the fact that the shepherds are probably sitting in a place with shade and a cool, nice place, and the animals are thirsty and they are in the sun. So Yaakov felt he must say something. Interestingly enough, when we talk about Yaakov and animals and the commentary of the Or HaChaim, please take a look. Source number 13. V'Yaakov nasa Sukkota, and Yaakov traveled to Sukkot, that's the name of the place. Vayiven lo Beit, and he built for himself a house. Ulemikneu, and for his flock, asa Sukkot, he made like Sukkot, like a canopy. Al ken kara shem hamakom Sukkot, therefore he called the name of that place Sukkot. So obviously, when you read this pasuk, there is a simple question that we all need to ask. Why do I need to know that? Who cares that he built for himself a house, and for the animals he built a canopy, or he built like a temporary building? What does that teach me? The Or HaChaim says the following. V'tam kriyat shma Sukkota. Why? What is the reason that the name of that place that Yaakov dwelled in was called Sukkota? Bishvil shelemikneu asa Sukkot, because he made the flock Sukkot. ולא אמר לסוכות, שאז תבין שקודם בא יעקב הייתה נקראת סוכות ולא חנו. Because meaning that name had a different, that place had a different name. And the new name Sukkot was because of what? Because Yaakov made the Sukkot for the animals. Okay, what's the idea behind it? Says the Or HaChaim, אולי כי עשה דבר חדש. Yaakov invented a new concept, which is what? בחמלתו על המקנה. He had compassion over the flock. מה שלא עשה כן אדם קודם שיכין סוכה לבהמות. No one until Yaakov made a canopy or made some kind of a structure for the animals to rest. They didn't care. They just left the animals outside until Yaakov. And Yaakov built for them Sukkot. And this is the reason, because he created a new concept in the world. That's why the place received this new name, Sukkot. What the Or HaChaim says should really excite us. Because basically we see with Yaakov few things. A, his compassion over animals, which reminds us obviously Moshe Rabbeinu with the famous story with this little sheep, little lamb that he ran after, and he realized that he's thirsty. He gave him water, put him on his shoulders, and came back. And this is the reason, according to our sages, that Moshe was chosen to be the leader of the Jewish people. Because God says, if you have so much compassion over a little lamb, you definitely will have compassion over my people, over my flock. B, Yaakov does not only feel this compassionate feeling, he also does something about it. What does he do? He creates something. He teaches the world. The animals are there maybe to serve you, but it doesn't mean that they don't have needs. You can't just leave them out there. And by the way, we know in halacha, in Jewish law, we have a concept that says that you cannot eat before your animal. If you have an animal, you need to feed the animals first, and only after that you can eat. The idea of having this mercy over the animals does not mean that, I really have so much mercy on the animals, but I don't do anything about it. No, no, no. You have an obligation to them. And Yaakov feels that what the shepherds do to their flock is injustice. It's unethical. It's not correct. It's not right. And therefore he approaches them and says to them, Lo ete asefa mikneh, what are you doing to your flock? They suffer. You need to do something about it. Like what I do. And that's the Or HaChaim. The Netziv is highlighting an incredible concept that I think is almost goes like a common thread between all the parashot of Sefer Bereshit. And I will explain myself. The Netziv, in his introduction to Sefer Bereshit, says the following. Ze הספר נקרא Sefer Bereshit. This book is called Sefer Bereshit, Genesis. But נקרא בפי הנביאים Sefer הישר. But our prophets, our Nevi'im, they name the book Sefer HaYashar, the book of the upright. כדאית במסכת עבודת כוכבים, על שני המקראות, הלא היא כתובה על ספר הישר. Okay. So Sefer Bereshit has two names. The book of Genesis, Bereshit, and Sefer HaYashar, the book of the upright. So Genesis, we understand why, because we have generations and generations upon generations in this book, so it makes sense to call it Genesis, Bereshit. But Sefer HaYashar, what's the reason? Says the Netziv. ויש להבין, the second paragraph in source 15. ויש להבין הטעם למה קרא בלעם את אבותינו בשם ישרים בייחוד, לא צדיקים או חסידים וכדומה. וגם למה מכונה זה הספר בייחוד בכינוי ישרים, ובלעם התפלל על עצמו שיהיה אחריתו כמו בעלי זה הכינוי. He asked three questions. He says, first, when you move forward to Sefer Bamidbar, and you all remember Bilam, the magician who tried to curse the Jewish people, he named the entire Jewish people and our forefathers Yesharim. Why to call them Yesharim? Why not tzaddikim, righteous people, pious people? Why upright people? Second, why the book of Genesis is called also the book of the upright? And the third question is Bilam himself, before he died. He says, Tamot nafshi mot Yesharim. May I die like the death of the Yesharim. What is the idea of Yesharim? Vainyan, says the Netziv, the idea is, the concept is, דנתבאר בשירת האזינו, על הפסוק עצור תמים פעולו, כי כל דרכיו משפט אל אמונה ואין עוול, צדיק וישר הוא. The Torah describes God as עצור תמים פעולו is a rock, which is a complete, a wholesome rock, like a strong entity. There is no injustice. He is righteous and he is upright, is ישר. דשבח ישר הוא נאמר להצדיק דין הקדוש ברוך הוא בחורבן בית שני שהיה דור עיקש ופתלתול. So basically, he says that the praise of the word yashar is to come to justify the judgment that God had against us, especially during the time of the Second Temple. Because at the Second Temple, the Jews were observant, they kept Shabbat and Kashrut and Brit Milah, and everything. And still, the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed. And why? Because of Sinat Chinam. Okay, because of Sinat Chinam. What does it mean, Sinat Chinam? That's a reason to destroy the Beit HaMikdash, to expel the Jews from the land of Israel? Says the Netziv. What he wrote is such an incredible insight that we all need to understand. He says, מפני שנאת חינם שבליבם שזה את זה חשדו את מי שראו שנוהג שלא כדעתם ביראת השם שהוא צדוקי ואפיקורוס, ובאו על ידי זה לידי שפיכות דמים בדרך הפלגה ולכל הרעות שבעולם עד שחרב הבית. Says the Nativ, you know what was the problem during the second temple? Yes, they learned Torah. Yeah, they kept mitzvot. They did everything besides one thing. When they saw a person who does not behave exactly like them, someone that they felt that he is not that observant, they immediately stigmatize him. They categorize him or her as someone who is outside of the Jewish people. And they murder them. This is horrible. The Naziv basically says that Jews killed other Jews because they thought, meaning the murderers thought, that the other people don't behave exactly like what they think they need to behave. They deviated, and therefore, they deserve death. That's sinat chinam. So you can be tzaddik, you can be very observant, but you can have sinat chinam, which will destroy you and the entire people. So I skip a bit to the second paragraph, וזה היה שבח האבות. You know what, before that I'll go to the first paragraph, sorry. ועל ידי זה היה צידוק הדין שהקדוש ברוך הוא ישר הוא ואינו סובל צדיקים כאלה. Hashem himself is upright. He cannot tolerate tzaddikim, righteous people that think that the only way is their way. And if anyone else deviates, if anyone else does not walk exactly the way they think, he is a tzduki, he is an apikorus, he is outside of the Jewish religion, and he is outside of the Jewish people. God does not like people like that. Because what God wants is people שהולכים בדרך הישר, people who go in the right path, in the upright path, גם בהליכות עולם, ולא בעקמימות, אף על גב שהוא לשם שמיים. He wants menches. God wants people who are a true menches. Yeah, He wants them to observe Torah and mitzvot. But if you are not a mensch, if you are not an ethical person, you don't understand that there are other people who might not be exactly like you, you have a lot of work to do. Even if it's L'Shem Shamayim, even if you think that you protect God, God does not need your protection. וזה היה שבח האבות, שמלבד שהיו צדיקים וחסידים ואוהבי השם באופן היותר אפשר, he says that was the praise, that was the glory of our forefathers, that besides the fact that they were pious and they were righteous and they were observant, עוד היו ישרים, they were upright. היינו, what does that mean? שהתנהגו עם אומות העולם אפילו עובדי אלילים מכוערים, מכל מקום היו עמם באהבה וחשו לטובתם באשר היא קיום הבריאה. He says, when you look at our forefathers, most of their interaction will be with the non-Jews, with the pagans. And you see how they treat the pagans. I'm not going to read everything, but I'm just going to give few examples. Abraham went to argue with God for the people of Sodom and Gomorrah. I mean, he dared basically challenging God for his judgment. He says to God, you know, it's not fair. How can you wipe out a tzaddik and rasha, a righteous person and a wicked person at one time? It's not fair. Maybe we can negotiate 50, 45, 40, 35. For whom? For people who are wicked. But Abraham felt he needed to try to protect them. Yaakov, he approaches those shepherds. He calls them Achai. You are my brothers. Because what I see as a Jew, as a Hebrew, is that we need to correct this universe. All of us. It starts with us, but it should affect and reflect on the entire universe. An ethical humanity, a humanity that believes in morality and ethics and justice, is something that does not belong only to the Jewish people. It should belong to all humanity, everyone. And that's why Yaakov feels he can talk to them. Those are his brothers. And therefore, he can approach them. Now, I guess he saw that it's going nowhere. So he himself shows by example, he led by example, how an employee should act. And then Yitzchak, also with Avimelech. When Avimelech tried to appease Yitzchak, Yitzchak gives him a little bit of a rebuke. And he says to him, look, what are you doing? You block my wells, you basically drive me out, and now you come to what? To try to be my friend? This is not how friends behave. And then when Avimelech says, oh, I didn't know, Yitzchak says, okay. Which means Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, all of them are called Yesharim because of the way they treated the pagans, the people around them. That's what it means to be Yashar. And then he continues on and he says, ומשום הכי, I'm in the fourth line, נקרא כמו שאמרנו ספר הישר על מעשה אבות בזה הפרט. ובלעם בשעת רוח הקודש לא היה יכול להתפלא על רוע מעשיו שאינו צדיק וחסיד כאברהם, יצחק ויעקב, אחרי שהוא נביא אומות העולם וראשו במקור הטומאה. But he basically says, we are called Yesharim because the way we treat others and the way that we care about justice, ethics, and morality, not only for us, but for the entire people, for the entire universe. And then he also answers one more question. He says, Bilam, before he died, he says, I would like to die like the Yesharim. Why to die like the Yesharim? Like those upright people. Says the Netziv. He says, Bilam understood he cannot be righteous and pious like Avram, Isaac, and Jacob. But he would love to be like Mekaimei Abriya, people who are maintain the level of morality in society, which are the Jewish people. I think that this parsha, this story in the parsha, which seems to be so superfluous, so meaningless, why do we need the conversation between Yaakov and the shepherds and to tell them that, it's too early in the day, what are you doing, you're wasting your time? It teaches us not only about Yaakov, it teaches us about ourselves. The name of our nation is Israel, Yashar El. God's expectation from us is, besides learning Torah, keeping mitzvot, doing a lot of chesed, and to be moral and ethical within our own, what I will call our own camp and our own people, we have a universal mission. We have a universal task. We need to lead by example. What does it mean to be an ethical nation? Not only people, nation. Because you have many ethical people, many moral people everywhere. The problem that we face is, as a nation, and as nations, we are lacking in this ethical behavior. And part of our dual mission is, on one hand, to strengthen ourselves as Jews, but then we have a second mission, which is to be a light unto the nations. To learn from Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov how to deal with other people, how to try to guide them, to help them, to protect them from their own unethical behavior in order to correct them as well. And not from a superior point of view, oh, we are so ethical, we're going to let you know how to do things. No. To work together. Remember how Yaakov approached the shepherds. Achai, me'ayin atem. My brothers, where are you coming from? In a way, I would like to suggest perhaps a little bit of a midrash idea. Yaakov is asking those shepherds, Achai, my brothers, where are you coming from? What is your starting point? Where is your ethical starting point? What's your compass? Where are you coming from? And obviously the second question will be, and where are you going from here? Come and join me. Come and join my path. Come and join my way. And together, we can do something. We can change this world. We need to believe in it. We need to believe in ourselves. we need to believe in others, that together we can bring a different ethical level for our society, where we can basically remove injustice, increase morality and ethics, and to create a world which is filled with good, which is filled with justice, which is filled with emunah, with faith, and musar, ethics and morality. Thank you. אל תדאגי, אני בטוח שזה יישאר